Well, Barbara, you do not disappoint. You are just a wealth of knowledge, and you're hitting all the topics that I would want to ask you about. But I do know we've got some people in our team here that would like to ask a few questions. So if that's okay with you, I'm going to open that up to a few brave souls that want to come forward and ask. I believe, Ian, you may have had a couple questions for Barbara.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Barbara. It's fascinating as well that you encountered this phenomena at the very early start of your career, which is great with the hypnotherapy, and it's fascinating to hear that the sheer number of people that you've progressed over the years. So I want to say thank you as well so much for your service for helping people in the UFO community and helping people to come to terms with what is going on, what is really going on. So my question really is, over the years, have you noticed a trend or different trends or a change or perhaps even a drop off in the number of people being abducted that reflects perhaps certain stages of certain programs by other intelligences are coming to fruition as we plot the evolution of it? Yeah, thank you.
Very good question. It seems as if there are fewer of the abductions by the little grays. The little grays, I think, are the beings that we tended to hear more about in the early days of being aware of this sort of thing. In other words, back in the 1970s, 80s, even early 90s or so. And many people were aware of being abducted by little grays and having the medical exams, and little samples were taken from them, hair, skin, fluids, etc. And that there was a group of little grays that seemed to be very, very interested in our human physiology and how our body systems worked. And they did not do that to be mean or to harm us. And I don't think they really did harm anybody with those examinations, but a lot of people did not like those, and you can well imagine why. I do not hear reports currently of that sort of thing going on. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but if it does, I don't think it's nearly as common. So since about the 1990s, I have been aware of many other kinds of beings who are making contact with humans. And some of them are doing examinations in order to heal the person, as I have mentioned. And some of them don't have anything to do with physical examinations at all. And we also see in many of these regressions that there are several different species of beings who seem to be working together on the same ship and seem to be working together with the same person who's taken for this experience. And they have more of often many of them more of a mental, spiritual influence on the people and interest themselves rather than physiological. And so there's, in some cases, there's a good deal more communication that is going on between the beings and the people than I think there was in the early days, at least, of our awareness of all of this sort of thing. Yeah, does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. So I'm glad that you're able to put that out there as well. I've noticed that, through the research that I'm doing, there seems to be a drop off definitely with the greys, but again, there's always new beings and new people with new experiences coming forwards.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to see an evolution of the phenomena, and again, as we try and gradually learn more and more about what's going on. Wanted to just mention one other thing. People, have you ever come across anybody that you are unable to break through their the mind block that they've had put on them by their experiences?
Well, out of a few thousand people, I've regressed to extraterrestrial experiences, and the people who still come once in a while for a past life regression. I still do those. Anyway, out of a few thousand people, there have been 6 people who felt that they did not really regress to something specific. However, anyway, that's a very small number who didn't, which is the good news. But even then, with each one of those people who didn't feel that they really achieved a regression, once they were in that nice, deeply relaxed state, it seemed like it would be beneficial anyway, because they would get understanding or information which was perhaps coming from their higher self, their higher mind. In other words, a different perspective on whatever they were dealing with day to day that they had been wondering about. So each one of those people felt like, okay, well, I didn't really regress, but I certainly have learned a lot, and it's been very helpful. So that was good. I think that's sometimes maybe that's even more of what the person needed than going into a specific regression to a specific event. But you see, hypnosis and regression is really just a nice state of deep relaxation. And I take a number of minutes to really help the person to get into that, to guide them in that. And so I think that that's something that everybody is capable of achieving. And
Thank you.
many people, actually, before we do the regression, or even when we're booking a regression, they will say, well, I don't know if I can be hypnotized, or I tried hypnosis once or twice and it didn't work. And I say, well, listen, I understand that, and don't worry about it, because it's really just a nice state of deep relaxation, and I'll take all the time you need to help you to get into that. And it's very doable, even if you haven't done it before. So that's why it works, so many times. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Brian and Tara. I have to leave now because I co-host with Linda Moulton Howe on the Earth Files YouTube channel this evening. So I'll look forward to, I think I'm going to be seeing you, Barbara, in San Diego at the Portal to Ascension conference. Is that right? Are you attending that as well?
April.
Yeah, in April. So I look forward to seeing you then. Take care.
So
Yeah.
thanks, Ian. You've got
Thank you.
200,000
Care.
subscribers coming on now. So you're not
Okay.
nervous? 200, you're talking to 200,000
Yeah.
people?
Have to go. See you later. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Thanks,
Ian.
Ian.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead to Tom next. I know he had his hand up next. So Tom, would you like to unmute yourself and ask Barbara a question?
Hi, Barbara. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. I can see you.
Good. Well, when I saw that you were going to be on this interview, I went to dig out my book, and I had that one and the other one by Miguel that you co-wrote with.
Yes.
And I read both of these when they first came out, because I've had lots of experience over the last 30 plus years. And I wanted to say that the book that you co-wrote with him, because you were interviewing individual people, this has been 7-8 years since I've read this now, and I pulled it out. It's on my re-review list right now. But there was at least 3 or 4 of the people that you regressed and had got information from that I completely paralleled with. I felt, more of a deep camaraderie because of a shared experience, even though I don't have any conscious recollection of anything. But over the last 30 years, I've done a lot of channeling with friends, and I have a lot of psychic friends, and some of them have the ability to cross over those things. And in the last 2.5, 3 years, I've been privy to some really deep information about myself and my participation in the program, let's just say. And you brought up a really interesting point just a moment ago that I only touched on a few months ago, and that was, when Ian asked about, are the grays kind of phasing out of this? And my understanding is there's new groups all the time coming in, wanting to start different hybrid programs, and they talk with the powers that be, and they give them permission or they don't for whatever reason. And it's really interesting because I have found I've had more people coming into my life. I had one yesterday, a younger fellow just got referred to me by a friend, and we had a 3-hour conversation yesterday, which we're now going to continue. And a lot of, again, shared parallel experiences. And I'm curious, because you've done so many, and I know, I don't remember exactly how many were in that book, I think 8 or 10. Have you had
8.
have you had a lot of people that are sharing with let's say the same groups more than the same experiences? Because obviously, if my parents used to do that world thing where they would bring people from other countries and they would stay here for a while, and if you experienced a Chinese culture or an Aboriginal culture from Australia, it would be a different experience for me than for you than for any one of these other people, because we live differently. Do you find that any of that would be coming through any of your more recent regressions?
Well, you mean if different beings are
Well, yeah, different groups of beings. Let's call it groups of beings. I was reprimanded once in a discussion for saying, "Why do you keep lumping us all into one group?" Because it's hilarious. And the other thing I mentioned to Brian once before when we talked, he says, why do you keep calling us aliens when we were here first?
Hey, Tom, we changed the name of this meetup from Preparing for Alien Contact to ET. Tom, you inspired me. Actually, it was Michael Ney here who actually changed my mind. He's at Beyond Being Human. So sorry to interject, but I was so inspired.
That's okay. It's just there's. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
irrepressible thing. Yeah. No. Well, I'm with the people that I'm regressing currently, from the description of the beings, in the regressions, it does seem to me that there are different, newer to our awareness, that is, beings interacting with people more currently, it seems.
Yeah.
But then there's no way to know whether we're interacting with other people whom I don't know earlier than this or not. But you see, apparently, from what I understand, these beings, even though they're on different planets and there are huge distances between them, but they are so telepathic and do so much remote knowing. I don't know if it's like our remote viewing abilities that some of our people have or not, or if it's just a similar process. But anyway, they know about each other and they travel a lot from planet to planet, and they sometimes combine together. And so it could be that groups that are new to us are finding each other, collaborating with each other. And part of that collaboration would be visiting humans and doing whatever their particular interest is with humans. So to answer your question, I think yes, there are new beings coming into this all the time.
Yeah.
That's-
Well, that was one of the things that I that's only come into my understanding recently. I have a fairly good understanding of my own program, let's just say, and offspring. And you described a few of them to a T when you said about the other planets and that they might not look like us and all of that. I have a lot of information about that, and it's fascinating. It's scary. It's so out there. You know, there's just not a lot of people you can talk to about it.
Yeah.
And I have not been through a regression. I've talked to a few. There's a lady here that has written a couple of books. She's an abductee, and she's also a regression therapist. And we've talked enough times. I may still do it yet. And if you're going to be in LA in April, I may be out there and we'll meet and say hello one time. I will look up that function. But keep up the work. This is great. I mean, I love this stuff. It's taken me a long time. I told Brian the last time we talked, I was on here for Judy Carroll's interview, her first interview, and it's taken me a long time to feel comfortable to just really spit it out and say, hey, this is who I am. I think you get to a point in life where you just don't care anymore. You know, you believe me or don't, I don't really care. You know, I have some very close friends that think I'm nuts, but they haven't even heard the tip of the iceberg from what I know. And I think that's one of the things in a book like this, especially where these people are given their experiences, and you can actually put two of them together and say, well, these are pretty close, and this is pretty close, or this is exactly something that I experienced. It really helps to open up. So keep it up. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate your sharing. I'm very impressed with, how involved you are with this and how much you know. And that you have that wonderful openness to continue to learn and to know.
Well, it's funny, the guy that was referred to me yesterday, he's younger, he's in his 30s, and we clicked so fast on the phone. I just let it out, and he was in awe and helping at the same time, because this is not I'm twice his age. It doesn't matter. It's not like I know more than he does, because he has a different experience. But what we were getting back and forth was pretty incredible for somebody I've never met. I still haven't met him in person. I don't know what he looks like. But it doesn't matter, because this is our little expanded tribe growing again. And you're shaking your head there. I can see that, you know exactly what I mean by this. And I appreciate that, because I'm tired of holding it in. And the people that think I'm nuts can think I'm nuts. It's you people that I want to connect with. And I'm going to continue that. I'm working on a project also. And
what is that project?
It's a book of my own experience, which has become quite, in the last 2 years, I will say it has become quite expanded, and it took me in some different directions, and I have to I kind of have to be careful in a way, because there's some things I probably shouldn't talk about and maybe can't talk about. So I'm still in the process of narrowing this down to a cohesive story that would make sense to all of you, and hopefully a whole bunch of other people. you
Well,
know?
wonderful, wonderful. I would love to read it when you get ready, when you
Well,
have finished.
you're on the top of the list, honey.
Good, thank you. Yeah,
All
well,
right.
that's really wonderful. And you're bringing up such a good point about not being able to talk to most other people about this, and other people thinking you're a bit nuts, because you're involved in this. And that's one reason why the experiencer support groups,
Mhm.
which have been given at many conferences now, why they are so important. And after I was working with 17 people, this is back in the early 1990s, one of them finally said, "Is there anybody else you're working with who is having these things happen?" I said, "Yes, indeed." And then another person, another client asked about that. And then I thought, I'm working with 17 people right now, seeing them, more than once for their extraterrestrial experiences. And I thought, well, why not pull them together in a group? So I started an experiencer support group. That was 1994. And that group lasted until I moved away from there in 2017. So that, in fact, I just heard from one of those people today. And anyway, then I was going to a lot of the UFO conferences and speaking at some of those. And I convinced the International UFO Congress to hold an experiencer support group. And they
Wow.
finally agreed after a year or so of urging them. And they said, "If you lead it, Barbara." So I led it. And, we just didn't know what would happen. But when the time for the group arrived during the conference, there were 50 people who immediately showed up for that group.
Wow.
And we're so glad to have some other people to talk to about this, and to be able to say what's happened for them that they're aware of, and hear from others was so validating. So we continued that group. They're still doing that at the International UFO Congresses and many other conferences as well. I've led them at many other conferences, and other people have joined the ranks to lead some of those groups too. So that's wonderful, because people really appreciate that.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
having these experiences.
again, thank you. I'll let somebody else get in here and listen to what everybody else has to say.
Well, thanks for the
you.
question, Tom. And don't worry, none of us here think you're nuts.
Well, I gathered that because I'd just be doing a little mirror thing.
I
Thanks.
certainly don't think you're nuts.
Well, we do have a few questions lined up here, Barbara. There's a queue forming, so let's go to Gina next.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Barbara. And
Hi.
Tom, I really resonate with things that you said. And Barbara, I feel emotional and thankful and so appreciative just for you to be here. I share your passion for hypnotherapy. I was a public school teacher for 16 years. I've switched gears now, to make a long story short. I've experienced high strangeness my whole life. And now I'm fulfilling this calling. And so most of the folks on here have already heard my little story, but I've got like, I don't know, 12, 15 questions, but I'll just ask the ones I highlighted. But just to give a little background about what I do is I do what's called rapid transformational therapy, hypnotherapy. Marissa Peer invented it. And it's like you were describing, you regress folks. We target identifying false inhibiting beliefs. So classic case, fear of flying. So I would get you under hypnosis and I would ask you, when was the first time you felt the fear of flying? And then clients would bring me back typically to their childhood where, blueprinting happens. And usually it's something small, like they got locked in the bathroom and they just couldn't figure it out. But at that time, that was huge, right? Sometimes, yeah, it's cases of violation and it's a loss of control. But what's happening is fascinating because Marissa Peer created this for everybody. And she made it a point to leave spiritualism out. Well, I'm telling you, all I'm experiencing is spiritualism, because when I regress clients, it freaked me out initially, but I regress clients and they go back into past lives. And I didn't always make that connection at first, you know. And even as a hypnotherapist, because Marissa Peer leaves out that spiritualism piece, I was questioning if I'm doing this right. And so there's even a coming together, if you will, of folks like yourself who are hypnotherapists who are leading the way, because the rookies like myself need folks like you to look up to and to follow your lead. And so I really appreciate that. And I wanted to ask you just random insight questions from one hypnotherapist to another. And I know Yanko here is also a hypnotherapist, and I'm not sure who else is, if they wanted to give a wave or something. But I'm wondering, how long is one session typically, and how many sessions do you do with a client? And I'm also interested in, when clients go into a past life, have they ever changed personalities on you? Because that has happened to me. And it's like, is this their higher self? Who am I talking to? And really rewinding on those questions of what's going on around you, those detective questions, the who, the what, the when, and trying to avoid the yes, no. I guess maybe let's just rewind. And how long is a typical session? I find mine are a good 3 hours, and clients need a good 2 or 3 sessions with me at least.
Yeah. Well, when I book a session, I tell them it's a 3 or 4 hour session or more, because the more is depending on how much talking we do before we do the actual regression. And the regression itself usually lasts at least an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, and on rare occasions it even lasts a couple of hours, depending on what we get into and how verbal the beings, or if it's an extraterrestrial regression. And then if the beings start giving information, then it goes on for quite a while. And a very interesting part of that is that the beings are giving information to my client who's being regressed. And then after a while, this has happened a number of times, after a while of being speaking to that person in the regression, then they turn their attention to me. I am not asking for that. But then they say, oh, now we want to talk to Barbara, or we have something to say to Barbara. We have a message for Barbara. And the person in regression will keep on repeating what he or she is hearing the being say. And then I get to talk back to that being. Now, that's difficult for us to understand in terms of time, because we are so conditioned to think of time as linear time, that how could we be in a regression to a past event, even in this life, past event, and then be talking to those beings now. But you see, their concept of time is very different. It's simultaneous.
Yes.
Time is simultaneous. Everything's happening right now. So even though we think of that event as having happened, maybe, let's say 1996, and during the regression now in 2023, it's the same thing. We're still in touch with what's going on and what those beings are. So anyway, some of the sessions do finish after 3 hours, but mostly they go on for longer, 4 or 5 hours. I know one man, well, he drove from Northern California to San Diego, where I am, and he had so much to say because he'd had so many experiences. And we actually finished the regression after about 4 hours, but he had so much to say, and he was going to drive back again the next day. He wanted to get every little bit of opportunity. So we were together for 8 hours, but most of that was talking. Yeah. So, but then when somebody comes for a past life regression, usually we can accomplish that in closer to 3 hours.
Okay.
Maybe lopping over a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that was that question. Now, what was your second question?
I've got a lot of them. I know there's other hands, but I'll just prioritize ones that, and you answered some of them while you were answering that, and I appreciate that. That was a fascinating, phenomenal answer, Barb. And I'm wondering, so okay, yeah. So after you see a client and you've, check off list, they've healed, they've gained insight, I guess they have a desire, like the client you were just speaking of, to continue seeing you just for the sake of exploring, because that's the power of the ideal client. They come to you, they find you, you're not advertising, they found you, the word of mouth got around, and they want to talk. And so once you get them in hypnosis and that ball is rolling, that's all you can do is really listen to them. And the more you listen, the more validated they are. And to me, that is profound healing in and of itself.
Yes.
Okay, so do you ever find yourself when you're talking with a client and they're giving you information, have you ever received an image, like maybe they're sending you an image or the ET is sending you an image? It's happened to me once. A client was describing their death scene, basically. They forgot that they had died and it was all coming back under hypnosis. And I actually, with my eyes open, was able to see that, and I actually saw the client referred to this as an angel, but I was like, that's not an angel, that's an ET. But of course, I didn't say that to the client. I just go with what the client says.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's like a 2-in-1 question. Like, what do? You just go with what the client says. And I guess, yeah, about the images or words or voices you might hear.
Well, when I'm doing a regression, and the person is describing everything that he or she is seeing and experiencing, and I'm asking a lot of questions just to bring out more details and keep the process going. And so through all of that, I definitely develop not only a picture in my mind, but I feel very often as if I am there observing.
Yes.
And so as detail after detail comes out, yeah, I really do feel like I'm right there and seeing it, like being in the movie, so to speak, rather than watching it from a distance. And sometimes later, I will check a couple of those details with the person to see if this is how they saw it really from their point of view. Usually it's pretty accurate.
And I'm wondering, do you ask for a date? Like, do you ask a client in regression, what year are you in? Because I find with my clients, it's like, it's always focused around the feelings, how they're feeling and identifying the trauma in the body and trying to clear it. It's not really like, oh, I'm in the 17th century and this is how my house looks. And is that what you're getting a lot of? Like,
well, are you talking about a past life regression or an extraterrestrial type of regression?
well, that's just it. Things are just happening. So I'm trying to figure it out. And I've taken an oath to be open, authentic, thankful, and to honor those holy instances. And so sometimes I'm just going with what the client is saying. And so I graduated as a rapid transformational therapist, hypnotherapist, but given the situation, I'm now offering regression on the side, and I'm going with it. And I guess this is where I'm expanding my scope of practice and turning to folks like yourself, Barb, because I can't answer those questions. All I have is the information the clients are telling me. And sometimes I don't think they know, and I'm not sure if information is being blocked from them subconsciously. I don't know. And sometimes clients do interesting things with their hands. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what does that mean?
Are you saying that you you and the client are not aware that they have gone into a past life in that session?
No, I find I recognize it before the client does. And I'm not sure if they're just not being honest with me because they're feeling me out, because this is just my second year in. I'm a rookie, full disclosure, but it's happening and I'm going with it, you know, and I'm one of those people, folks have always told me things. So maybe I just need to advertise myself more and let people know, and those clients will come, and I'll build that confidence and navigate the waters. I just find it fascinating, really, really fascinating with the power of images and words. And like you said, once they start talking, they don't stop. I wonder about things like free will. I know that kind of came up a bit when Tom was chatting. And I also thought about it when you were talking about ETs coming to take eggs and sperm. And I thought, you know, I've heard so many stories where people describe they feel safe, they're totally on board. But part of me is feeling a bit concerned because I have to trust the uncertainty. I have to be certain of the uncertainty. But I am feeling concerned because I feel like, well, there's a child ET out there. There's a child ET here, hybrid. Are the right supports being put in place? And I don't know. I feel like there is a coming together, and I'm figuring it out. And I felt hopeful listening to you speak, and I felt hopeful listening to Tom as well, because I'm in the process of seeking a group to connect with, because my role is the hypnotherapist. And so I guess to kind of wrap up my questions, sometimes I get caught up in the science and politics, and I decided I don't care anymore. I'm on Tom's wavelength. This is what I do. I love it. I don't care if people talk about me anymore, because I'm attracting the right people in my life that I resonate with and that they resonate with me. And that's what matters.
Yes.
But I'm wondering, do you find yourself, now that you've written 2 books, that you find yourself caught up in trying to answer people's religious and politic questions, or are you comfortable just telling people, I don't know, this is what I'm getting from clients, this is the storyline, take it, don't take it? What are your thoughts, Barb?
Well, each person's experience is his or her own experience. And I am open to that. I listen to it, I learn about it. So I'm not quite sure what your question is. Is it in talking to other people here?
Yeah, sorry, I have a tendency of doing that. I'll stack a bunch of questions and lose sight. But I guess I'm wondering, do people ever challenge what you're doing, challenge the science, challenge the politics of ETs? And how do you respond to that? Or is your attitude like, I'm the hypnotherapist, this is my focus, and I'm sharing my passion, and whatever information comes out, this is what I'm sharing? Or do you find yourself having to defend your passion? I guess that's my question. Do you find yourself defending hypnotherapy and what you do if the science can't support it?
Once in a while, that comes up. And usually the person will ask, well, how do you know it's real?
Mhm.
That's a very typical question that I've gotten. And I say, well, I leave that up to the client. In other words, how does the client feel having experienced that in regression? Did they think that was real, or did they think it was just a fantasy? And because that's the only person who could really judge that. And I say to the person who's asked that question that most of the people, at least whom I have regressed, feel that it was real, that was an experience that they really went back to in the regression. Now, that's no proof of that, but that's what they feel. So that's good enough for them, and it's good enough for me. Yeah, yeah.
Love it. I love it. That's
I-
my attitude too.
I also tell people when I'm going to regress them, and we're sort of preparing to do the regression, we're together or we're on Zoom or whatever,
Right.
and we're preparing to start the regression. I tell them that it could very easily happen that during the regression, the everyday part of the mind, beautiful cat, everyday, everyday part of the mind might kick in now and then, say, I wonder if I could be making this up, or I wonder if this is really real, or, oh, well, I never would have thought that would happen, or, right in the middle of the action, if it's either an ET experience or a past life regression, I'd say, don't worry about that. That's just part of what happens, that even when you're in that deeper state of brainwave activity, usually theta state or alpha, deep alpha or theta state, that the regular beta state is still there to some extent, kicking in once in a while. So you might hear that, and I just call it the everyday part of the mind. It might make comments to them while they're actually in the regression. But then when they've come out of the regression, and I say, well, what is your opinion? What is your experience? Did that seem like a real experience? And they usually say, oh, yeah, I was really in that. It was really happening. If it's not just my imagination.
Right.
So
That was
so
very powerful.
it's good to, I think, talk with regression clients about that sort of thing.
Mhm.
That don't be surprised if that other part of your mind kicks in while you're actually re-experiencing this thing, this whatever happened, and then assess for yourself, what you make of it. That's important. That's much more important than what I make of it or anybody else in the world makes of it.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your insight. I feel inspired and I feel encouraged, and I feel encouraged to when I'm doing a regression, to tell clients, okay, I'm going to regress you into a past life. So it's not just popping up randomly when I'm doing rapid transformational therapy, hypnotherapy, for my own scope of practice. And I feel encouraged to
I would like
just
to
really put myself out there.
I'd like to interject here. I think, well, you see, when I've done many years of past life regression therapy, it's for the purpose of going to the source of something. Like suppose somebody this is a typical example, suppose somebody has a trauma, let's say a trauma of water, okay, being in water. And the person doesn't know why, but they've had it all of their lives. So I will say, let's do a regression to see where this came from, what the source, the cause of that phobia really is. And then I say, what may happen in the regression to find out the cause is that you'll go back to something earlier in this life that you do or do not know about that happened, or you might even go into a previous lifetime, and that was the cause, and the trauma of that got carried over into this lifetime. So in other words, we don't deliberately go into a past life.
Okay.
But usually, more often than not, it does turn out that what the person experiences certainly seems like another time, another place, another situation in the past from what they're describing of the outfits, the transportation, the, whatever is going on. Certainly seems like, well, this is not modern time. And it was be only later that we would label that as a past life. Now, there's an exception to that too, that some people come because they really want to know what happened in their past life. And I sort of chuckle because we've not just had a past life, we probably had hundreds or thousands of previous lifetimes. So then I say, if you'd like to go and visit a past life, it's worthwhile, in my opinion, it's worthwhile to choose some sort of issue that's important to you, that you would like to know about. And if that began in a past life, that's the lifetime that will come up. Like, let's say this happened once. What is the source of your tremendous interest in opera singing and your being an opera singer when nobody else in your family had anything to do with music? So where did that come from? What is the source of that? So we did a regression with this particular woman, and it turned out that she was an opera singer in her most recent past life and got to relive a lot of the details of that and where she was. And that was interesting. Oh my God. When you get into the subject, it's so fascinating. She went into giving concerts in her big living room in a big home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Cool. And it just turns out that she and her husband live in that very same house now in this life in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So we had done the regression, and then she became a friend and was on one of my crop circle tours. And on the way back, we stopped at that house, and she showed me the living room and where it was rearranged very differently now, but she showed me where the piano was and the other instruments, and where she would stand and sing and give these concerts. And so she's living in the same house that she lived in that previous lifetime. And that reminds me too that there have been a few people, including myself, who had a past life regression of being in a different place, like a different country, and in a particular home. And they got in the regression, got a lot of details of the home and the surrounding territory. And then in this life, they actually went to that country and found that home. And I did that. Yeah, the home that I had lived with. This life husband had been my husband in that lifetime, my most previous lifetime, and in England, and I found that home. And it was
amazing.
Exactly detail by detail what I had seen in the regression.
That's amazing, Barb. And those are beautiful examples of positive regression scenes, because a lot of people have this false idea that hypnotherapy is going to be this traumatic event, and it's not. There's beautiful experiences like that. I was going to ask you about the life between lives, and I have other questions too, but I see there's a lot of hands up. So thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Gina, for the questions. I'm sure you have a lot more. Barbara, I think we could probably spend an hour on every single question with you. So we would love to have you back again too, because I want to be respectful of your time. I think we probably have maybe another 20 minutes, hopefully, with you. Okay. And I definitely would love to get through a few more questions here if we could. Yes. By the way, if you haven't noticed, this is the time in the meeting where everyone brings out their cats. So if you've got a cat and you want to put it on camera, now's your time.
That was a beautiful cat. I welcome seeing people's cats.
I know. Funny enough, I feel like we should change the theme of this meeting to being like a cat meeting instead of, or maybe cat alien. I don't know. Anyway, Brian, you had your hand up next. Did you want to ask a
There
question?
you are, beautiful black cat.
Yeah, this is, her name's Happy Cat. She wants to get 1 million hits in 5 years. That's her goal. So,
Oh,
well, Barbara, this is the first time we've ever met face to face. So I'm desperately nervous, of course. I've watched your videos for a few years. I invited Richard Dolan to come tonight because I sent him an email about various other personalities. And he says, I just adore Barbara Lamb, so
oh.
that was nice. This is posted on my website. But yeah, I guess if I had 27 questions, I think the most important question I would ask you is, how do you feel about taking care of your legacy? Like, what would you want to do now in your immediate future to prepare your legacy? How are you going to be remembered years from now or decades or centuries from now? What would you do to protect your legacy?
Oh, that's a very important question. And I must say, I'm not doing very much, except that I'm doing a series now on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel. It's just called Barbara Lamb Regressions. And so I'm doing a series of talks about, each one is about a different kind of, more or less unusual experience that I've had. And in each case, I've had quite a number of them, like out-of-body experiences. That's the discussion for one of them. And many of the OBEs that I've had. Another is spirit visits, spirit communications with my loved ones who have died, who've visited in very outstanding ways in some cases. And another is my UFO sightings. Another is my extraterrestrial encounters. Another is I just did one earlier today of the what I call the big voice in my head. In other words, the guidance, the spirit guidance that people have, and I give examples of the kind that I have. So anyway, it's a whole series of maybe about 12, each one with a different subject, each one lasting about an hour. So that's going to be on, and some of them already are on the YouTube channel. More will follow. And then I have archives of all the notes that I've taken during the regressions for extraterrestrial encounters. And Daniel Sheehan, who has an institute, he is, I'm going to have my heirs make sure that he gets that material with the identity of the people obliterated, but just the whole regressions that came out in written form. And so that's all that I've done so far. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, yeah, I was thinking this video is going to be watched by over 1,000 people in the future. The purpose of this video is really to talk to the video audience. There's 17 people here, but what really matters is the audience. So can we ask the video audience watching this video in the future, would they like to volunteer to help Barbara Lamb take care of her legacy, like maintain your YouTube channel? And would you want them to contact you or us or me? And what's your contact information? Because I have a live radio show where they can't see anything. If you want to say any contact information from where I have Revolution Radio every Tuesday nights from 6 to 8 Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, okay. Well, I think, thank you so much for raising this. I appreciate that. I think the best way would be to email me, and the email address is barbara.lamb, Lamb, .therapist@gmail.com. So I'll just repeat that, barbara.lamb.therapist@gmail.com. That would be Wonderful. I thank you so much, because I won't be here with you all forever. And it would be nice that, I mean, there's so much, I think, very interesting and valuable information. I don't want to betray anybody's confidence, but it would be wonderful if some of the material could be more known.
Yeah, but like Tara was telling me that you broke your hip, I guess you're in your 70s. So I'm thinking about the future, like 10, 20, 30 years from now. And like your YouTube channel, I phoned up Susie Hansen, and I was telling Susie, you haven't loaded a new video in a year. I mean, you're interviewed all the place. Like Susie Hansen's like my #1 queen on the internet. And so like, are you loading everything on your YouTube channel? And do you have I told the executive of my estate, she's got $20,000 to handle my 3,000 videos after I'm dead. Do you have an executive estate dealing with your videos after you're gone?
No.
Oh, I used to be a financial planner 30 years ago. I was counseling my clients on writing their wheels. So that's something to discuss, your legacy.
Well, I think you and I need to have a talk.
Oh, I'm out of the business now. I'm just preparing for ET Contact now. I'm not a financial planner anymore. No, we could do a one-on-one video sometime. Yeah.
Yeah, just to talk about it, because
I mean a public video too.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I tend to be busy enough that these are just things I haven't really thought about.
Yeah, see, after people die, it's too late to think about it.
I know.
Actually, I'm a Buddhist teacher, actually, so I'm quite religious and orthodox. The Buddha said, what would you do if you had 6 months left to live? The Buddha said, you should contemplate upon death every day. I was a Buddhist monk in Thailand, and some of the other monks would draw a skeleton on their little kuti, their wall, to remind them of death every day. The Buddha recommended it.
Wow. Whoa. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's definitely stay in touch.
Sure. Well, thank you. I can pass it on to our hostess. Tara's desperately nervous. The second time in her career she's hosted for preparing for alien ET Contact. So she's doing a good job. And her cat's there. You want to show your cat, Tara?
She wants to be seen for sure. Well, Barbara, we don't want you being taken up to the big UFO in the sky just yet. So in the meantime, we do have a few more questions, if you don't mind, if you can indulge us a little bit longer. I'm going to move on to Paula. Paula, I know you're off camera at the moment. If you can hear us and you want to ask a question, you're up. You just have to unmute yourself.
Did she just come back?
Yes, she's at her computer now.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So my question is, have you ever had anybody be harmed that has a physical damage done by the ETs?
Oh, from ETs?
From the ETs.
I had one woman years ago who had what she called a keloid scar on her lower back. And it was something nobody ever saw unless she wore a bikini bathing suit or something, and it was a kind of a thick scar from some sort of procedure that they did, and it wasn't painful or anything, but it did last more than most of the markings that are done by the extraterrestrials that usually fade out or disappear within a few days. But this one had remained on the back for years. I don't recall any other, and that you wouldn't really call that damage, but it was an indication, from something that they had done that did last for a few decades, actually, in her case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not aware of any damage.
Why I'm asking is because last year about this time, I woke up with a very groggy, blah, 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 did not feel right. Anyway, I had it's in the front of my shin, a hole about as round as a dime, and all the way down to where the tendons and tissue was.
Oh.
I just woke up with it, and I really freaked me out. So I pulled up the blankets, no blood, nothing. I also had scratches on my shoulders, and then I had bruises on like my shoulders, like somebody was holding me down. Then life goes on. And about 7 months later, my dad had the exact same thing happen to him. We do not live together. And he woke up with this out in the same spot. Very strange. But you could feel it. There was always like a bump. It healed up and it scarred because it was really deep. So it scarred. And it took a long time to heal up. My whole ankle swelled up. And then you could run your finger over it, and it was like there was like a bump, like a BB underneath, but there wasn't anything in it. I mean, I could see it. It was a hole, and there was like a BB underneath it. And then about a month ago, I wake up again, and happened to just be getting dressed or whatever, and down on the very middle of the scar, it's all like it's opened up again. And, I could dab it with my finger, and there's blood on my finger, but it wasn't bleeding. There was just blood. It was wet with blood. And then again, no blood in my bed. This time I didn't have any bruises on my body. That particular, when the first instance happened, I really felt like I had just went through something traumatic. I mean, I did not feel right all day. It was like something happened, but I didn't know what. And then, so then now when it reopened up about a month ago, it was much smaller, was not a big deal, but it was right in the center of it. And now the bump is gone. So anyway, I'm trying to figure out what, I didn't want to do a regression at first because of all the bruises I had on my shoulders, that it felt like this was not something I wanted to remember. But then I had it happen, I had it happen where it's a much smaller wound. I didn't have bruises, and now the bump is gone. So anyway, I just wondered if anybody else had ever experienced it. Then you have not had anybody. So
Well, lots of people,
anyway, that's all.
Lots of people have shown me bruises that they have on their body. And as I mentioned, I think earlier, fingertip bruises looked like they were made by fingertips. And and they were together in a series, as if they'd been touched, by 4 or 5 fingers, fingertips. And they will stay for a while, but they will eventually fade away. And the people with triangular bruise marks, for instance, they will be there for a few days and then they'll seem to disappear. And scoop marks that were made way years earlier and are still there, the scoop mark. But the pinprick marks seem to disappear. I have heard of people complaining about having scratches on their backs, especially, and that they know they could not have afflicted, and maybe they lived alone, so nobody else was there. And in some of those cases, it might not be extraterrestrials. There's a possibility that the scratches might be from some other sort of entity, like another dimensional sort of a more of a demonic entity rather than extraterrestrials. So I think when you're thinking of markings on the body, it's wise to think, was there any possible clue other than that, that you'd had an extraterrestrial visit the night when
yes, I mean,
put on?
well, not that particular night, but I mean, it starts. My mother told me that an ET stepped out of the closet when I was a baby and put her to sleep and took me and then brought me back.
Oh, that's
That's
that. That's very, very
so and so I've had these kind of things and multiple things. I didn't want to, make force everybody to listen to my stories, but and so now I'm more interested in, because of the wound on my leg was a nasty wound. the original. The bruises and the scratches on my shoulders, they were just, you know, bruises and scratches. It's the one on my leg that it took about 2 months for it to heal. And my whole ankle swelled up, you know, and I kept like, you know, everybody tells me, oh, I live alone. Okay. So I have dogs, but I live alone. I don't even sleep with my dogs. So it was just I've never had that kind of wound and had no blood. And so that was also a thing that is kind of freaked me out. And then now I'm just thinking about looking more. So.
I have not personally heard of anything exactly like that, but I've certainly heard of and seen on people's bodies or seen photographs of, a number of different kinds of markings. So I think it depends on which beings are interacting with you and what their agenda is, what they're doing. But that was unusual in my experience of what you're describing about the hole in your leg. I had not heard of that particular one before.
Okay, well, thank you very much, because I wanted to know. So I really appreciate that. I think I will probably.
Something is definitely going on, obviously. And that's one of the advantages, I think, in my opinion. That's one of the advantages of having some kind of indication on your body, is that for people to sort of, look at that and wonder and wake up and think, where could that have come from? And then to find out that they really are having these experiences that they might not have known of. In other words, I think it's better to know about it, even though it's, mysterious, like this whole phenomenon, than to not know about it and wonder what's the matter with you. Like, why do you react to certain things differently?
Well, I try to tell people, and I don't even tell people anymore, because then they just make fun of me and, ooh, how much were you drinking, and stupid stuff like that, which is very irritating to me.
You know what? I think that is easing up a little bit, at least in this country, because there's so much now on public television. There's so many programs about this sort of thing on the internet, and the more and more people are becoming aware of it, the more and more books and so forth out there that people can be aware of. And so I think, and then of course the government, admitting that there are these unknown objects flying around in the sky, and they haven't said very much about it, but at least they've said that. So I think we're going to be finding that more and more people
just don't know what
think you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't know what to say, so they come up with something goofy to say, and so I just don't say anything anymore, because and I just wondered if there were other people besides my dad. I call it an alien bite, just what I called it. And not that I think somebody bit me, but something happened. But then my dad had the same thing happen, which is just to me, very strange. And he's got a scar too, almost on the same spot. We took pictures. But his is about 6 months later after mine. And so I thought, okay, well, me happened. Maybe other people have had this experience, but you've talked to a lot of them. And so probably not. It's probably just rare.
But there is a thing here that's worth mentioning, that when encounters happen with one person in a family, they usually happen with somebody else in the family. Like a lot of these extraterrestrial groups are very interested in following a family genetic line. So if your father had these sorts of things happening, and you do, probably his father or mother or somebody in the generation above him had these encounters. Then if you have children or if you have any sibling who has children, probably at least one of those will be having these encounters with the same group because they like to follow a genetic line from generation to
Okay.
generation. So that
Right.
really,
Because I feel like I was tagged and released like a fish or an animal. That's what it felt like to me, you know,
Right.
and then I don't know why they came back and now the bump is gone and it's just like, now I want to know more. You know, I kind of pushed out like, I don't want to know. Now I want to know. So I'm going to probably pursue it.
a
Thank
real-
you very much, Barbara.
well, one other thing, I think that the bump that you're mentioning that was inside the hole, right? Yeah.
Yes.
The bump that you said it's about the size of a BB, that sounds very much like it might have been an implant put in for a while.
Yes.
So they put them in and
Mhm.
then eventually sometimes a person realizes, wow, that's not there anymore. Wonder what happened to that? You know, I mean, they're
Right.
very, very clandestine, very clever in coming and making us not be aware when they come.
Oh,
and
yes. I
do
was,
their- gets away and do
yeah.
various things. But and putting an implant in a person is a very, very typical thing. And they do that for many,
Okay.
many reasons. It's hard to guess what that reason was, but sometimes it's just to find out more about us physiologically or find out more about life on Earth through the implant, or to even give you messages or give you medicine, you know, some sort of
Mhm.
some sort of condition that you have through the implant. And then when that's taken care of, they remove the implant. I mean, there are many, many different reasons for putting an implant in. There are many different types of implants.
Paula, it sounds
Right,
like you
right.
might have to go for a hypnosis session with Barbara so you can get some more answers.
I know, I just live in Washington State and she lives too far away.
She works over Zoom.
I
She
do
does Zoom appointments.
Zoom
She
and,
does. Oh,
Zoom and Skype,
oh,
FaceTime.
okay.
I've done a few.
Oh,
on-
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
That would be awesome. I might look you up. So it's just barbaralamb.com.
It's actually
have
in
a
the chat,
website?
Paula. We put her website in the chat.
Yeah, good
So-
idea.
Mhm.
yeah, you can email me through the website, and you can buy books through the
Okay.
or books through the website. Yeah, there's a facility on the website, the barbaralamregressions.com.
And you
Yeah.
can always read it under this
Awesome.
video weeks from now, right? This video is going to be released. All the contact information will be under this video. So there's no rush, right? We have our YouTube channel called Preparing for ET Contact that's linked on our About page. So we will not lose touch with Barbara.
Good.
Thank
Well-
you very much, Barbara. I will be contacting you then.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm glad we had a chance to
All
talk.
right.
Barbara, if it's okay,
Yes,
we have a
yes.
couple more questions and then I promise we'll wrap up and we'll let you get on with your evening, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I think, Michael, you had your hand up next.
Hi, Barbara.
Hello. Hello,
I,
Mike.
I don't know if you recognize me. I think it was about 2 years ago. We were in the same room at the Hybrids Zoom conference. And lots of
Oh, yeah.
in common.
Good to be with you again.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, this has been an absolutely fantastic session. And I didn't have my cat, but that's my friend.
Oh, that's cute. I like that.
And so I had teeth problems, and so does he. Anyway, I was wondering, had you actually heard of Beyond Being Human?
Have I heard of what?
Beyond Being Human.
Yeah, this is Michael's group in Australia. And Michael actually created Tara. He wrote to me a few months ago, said, Brian, you should have a female co-host. So he created Tara with his very hands.
Oh, so beyond
Yeah.
being human. No, I have not
Okay.
heard that.
Yeah, I'll put the link in for everyone.
Group
Oops,
in
wrong
Australia.
link.
Is that your group?
Yeah, one sec.
You're a co-host, Michael, if you need it.
Oh, great. Thank you. So that's the website. I'll give you the Facebook group in a moment. But my question before I actually launch into all of this is, have you had many people coming up with angelic experiences?
Yes. Yes, I have. In fact, there have been many regressions, especially in the last few years, more than earlier in my regression work. There have been what certainly seem to be other dimensional beings. Now, some of them look more human-like, and some of them seem to be more extraterrestrial-like, and yet they're not as physical, as three-dimensional and physical, dense as many of the beings. But among the other dimensional beings, there definitely have been some visits that the people who have them describe as angelic beings. In fact, Miguel Mendonça, who wrote Meet the Hybrids with me, he had an experience when he was quite a young man, around age 20 or so, that he remembered forever after that. And where he was camping and left the tent in the middle of the night to use the outhouse, and then came back, and kneeling by his sleeping bag that he was going to get back into was this big, luminous, angelic being. And he described it. I mean, he was sure it was an angel. And he was just absolutely amazed, never having had anything like that happen before. And he said something about, why are you here? And the angel said, this is to show you that this is real. And that was basically the message. And Miguel got back in the sleeping bag and went to sleep, having had his whole view of reality expanded. And it was large. So we did a regression when we were in the course of writing the book together. We did a regression on Zoom. And he was in England, I was in California, so that shows it works really well. And there was a little bit more to the experience than what he had consciously remembered, but it was still basically the same thing, that the angel came to let him know that there's so much more to reality than he had been aware of, and that it was important for him to know that. And as a result of that experience, you see, Miguel went on to write a number of other books that involve many, many different kinds of beings in the cosmos. So it really, really served him well, really got him going.
Well, that's really interesting. I've actually made contact with Miguel a while ago. In fact, I'd love to set up a conversation / interview with both of you at some point soon. In fact,
Oh, sure, that would be
we
great.
can talk about that. But the reason I asked was I had my own totally surprising encounter about 7 years ago that led to me creating this. You can all see that.
Yeah, we see it.
Ah, yes, that's beautiful. Lovely
Well,
picture.
that's just the front image. Is that better? Is that filling the screen?
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So this is now a project that has taken over my life.
Ah,
I was doing a self-development workshop, and totally out of the blue, my crown chakra started expanding to such an extent that I couldn't concentrate about anything else, and the energy flowed through my entire body. And I thought,
wow.
maybe I can see this energy, and looked at my hand and put it down beside me, and then saw wings. What? Wings? And like, whoa, okay, what's going on? And I came forward again, and the room had, at least in my memory now, I can't remember the person sitting in front of me. There was just one other person in the room, and the room had a spherical kind of feel, but I could see behind me this 7 foot or more, I don't know, angel with 2 white wings, and the energy was just building and building and building. And in fact, I now remember that I didn't even think to ask any questions or whatever. It's like, wow. But I take you in absolute humility and wonder that when you see something like that, the depth of how profound it is immediately eradicates any doubts about the spiritual nature of our being and God and the multidimensional kind of thing. But it led me on a journey of discovery. For about a month, I was just scouring all sorts of YouTube things and reading books and whatever, trying to find out about extraterrestrials, because Mary Rodwell, who I'd only just met a few weeks before that encounter, I rang her up straight away the next day, I think, and said, oh, you know, this has happened. And she said, well, maybe be open to the fact that it could have been an extraterrestrial. And, you know, it's like, wow, okay, I hadn't thought of that. Looked pretty much like an angel to me. It was a surprising angel, though, just as an aside. Big muscles, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type muscles. And I can't remember exactly the clothes, but I sort of seem to remember a silvery kind of sheen. But his face was like an American footballer, you know, really square jaw, very stern. And there was no telepathy during the event other than this energy. And it was like the feeling that I got that he was transferring is like, focus here, we're doing work here. You know? And I don't know how long it was, maybe kind of 10 minutes, but the person in front of me reappeared, and the energy kind of dissipated and whatever. And as soon as I saw her, I said, what did you see? Absolutely nothing. And I even went to her office the next day saying, you must have remembered something. You must have seen something. No. And all I can surmise now is that I was lifted out of ordinary reality into a different dimension and then popped back in. And but anyway, that's only the very beginning of the story. So let me very briefly tell me when to stop, Brian, because this could go on for a while.
Well, I'll leave that to our host, Tara. I'm just in the background, like
Okay,
the background guy.
Right. So I was always a Star Trek fan, and so I've kind of appropriated some of the ideas and imagery. But I'll let people go through the website themselves. But I've put 12 topics here that over time came to me. Actually, I mean, the story has a lot of details. I'll skip a lot of that. There is a 1 hour video interview with me that goes into a lot of that. But these 12 topics, ET visitors, angels, star children, hybrids, contact experiences, paranormal, shamanism, walk-ins, spiritual awakening, ecology, ascension, and consciousness are now the primary focus of a documentary that I've been working on for all this time, and just slowly inching towards approaching people for the financing of it and approaching broadcasters. And yeah, so I mean, it's now quite an extensive website, and this was the last kind of release, and so it's on a parallel track. I'm releasing a whole lot of interviews and conversations and panel discussions, and that's gaining a bit of a community. And actually, would I have a couple of minutes just to show you this quick video from Nadi?
Maybe 2 minutes. I'm just taking up the time because
It's
Norberto's
less
on
than 2
next.
minutes, yeah. And then I want to show you something, invite you, Barbara, to come into the support groups. You probably can't hear it, is that right?
Well, you have to hit sound before screen. You have to hit share
Yeah, I
sound.
need to stop share, so 1 sec.
Yeah, stop share, start share, and on the bottom left, you share sound first, and then you do the share on the
Yeah.
bottom right.
That's right, yeah.
Here.
So many little technical things, I don't know. So I'm jumping over to the YouTube channel, and so you should be able to see that. Is that right?
Yep. Well,
So
we don't
I've
see the
been
video,
so excited
no.
to meet up with Michael, and
We don't see
he
the
invited
video.
me to be part of the documentary
Okay.
project, which is actually
No, you
much
got the
bigger
sound, but
than
not the
the
video.
project, and he's got
You have to
extraordinary
click on the video.
for
Yeah, weird. Okay, 1 sec.
You had it before, but you
I
just
know,
clicked
I
on the
know, I know.
wrong feature.
I know. Okay, nearly there.
Barbara can
Yeah.
take a washroom break if she wants.
Yeah. It's only a minute or so. Yeah. So here we go. She tells it much better than I do.
So I've been so excited to meet up with Michael, and he invited me to be part of this documentary project, which is actually much bigger. It's a transmedia project, and he's got extraordinary visions for really having a different conversation about all of these extraordinary experiences, whether it's the paranormal or walk-ins, indigos, starseeds, hybrids. He's got this whole vision for a shamanism panel, and he's working with Christ consciousness, contributing to projects with the homeless. It's amazing. So that's kind of what we're doing. I want to clarify, this isn't an idea from Michael, right? This is a completely inspired project. And he's got this incredible experience of an angelic intervention, and he hasn't been able to sit still. He has been totally driven to make this project happen. I mean, he's up at all hours, and the energy going into it is so heart-centered. And I just wanted to add that piece. There's a really high vibe behind this whole thing, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
So yeah, that's a little introduction there, and I just wanted to show you some of this too. And Barbara, are you actually running a support group?
I was running one here in San Diego, And then COVID hit and we stopped meeting and we have not resumed it yet. And I've been phenomenally busy, so I haven't felt really inspired to get that all reorganized again. But I led them for many, many years in where I did live for many years in Claremont, California. And I've led them at many of the UFO conferences. But currently, at the moment, I'm not. No.
Right. Well, if you do start it up again, I'm sure you know Misha.
Yes.
But I'm starting to create a little directory of support groups because I absolutely recognize it's crucial at this particular time.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but look, I'd be happy to include you in the organizations. I know you're part of the Conscious Awakening
Network.
network. And yeah, so I've got people, so I'm working with Sylvain and Zenka, and LightNet's doing the most incredible work, and various other people. But the other thing is just to introduce you to what we've been doing with our videos and the other producers of the documentary. I'm sure you'd know Jennifer, you may not know James.
Jennifer Stein, yes, I know her. James.
James Carmen.
Yeah, I know of him, but I don't know him personally. And then
he did a documentary called The Hidden Hand, and I made contact with him several years ago, fairly soon after the angelic encounter, and we remained friends. And I asked him, I was looking for producers once I sort of settled on the idea of creating a documentary, and he said, well, I would like to be producer or co-producer, but I also want to be co-director. It's like, wow, that's amazing. Anyway, so we've been creating some shows, and that will continue. And you can go through various people here and get to know them. And the flight crew, this sort of started actually with Nadi, and so a whole lot of people have joined our ranks and have done various presentations and interviews and things. And Celia Hatch is one of the most recent ones, is very closely involved with Fire the Grid, which is a fantastic thing from someone who had a near-death experience. But you can read all about that. And there's videos now with all of that. But yeah, look, I just the documentary you can read about here. And
where can that be seen?
Well, no, this is the thing. So now I'm looking for the finance, and that's going to take a while, I think. Maybe, hopefully not. Been working on it for a while. And I just wanted to mention before I leave the screen, part of what we do is a charity campaign. So we link various events and things to that and raise some funds for different organizations.
Oh, lovely.
But the best thing is to at least start subscribing to the newsletter, which I'm only just kind of getting geared up about, or getting it happening. But yeah, it would be wonderful to actually have you and Miguel do a conversation.
Sure. Well, I think it's wonderful that you're putting all this together. It sounds absolutely great. Good for you.
Well, and like Nadi said, it's like all being driven really by the angelic inspiration that has been continuing on. And the entire documentary with those topics came to me in little segments, one after the other, and various people with all sorts of synchronicities came to me. And I'm overwhelmed by how many people have, with very little kind of information and know nothing about me. Here I am, an unknown Australian filmmaker with no big credits and whatever. And you know, I haven't mixed in America in this whole thing. I haven't been to any of those conferences. I have been quite a lot to America, but no one knows me essentially. But the most incredible people are all saying yes. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful. This is really your service here, your destiny. Yes, it must feel really good.
Well, it does. And what's kind of really surprising too is initially I thought I'd be like investigating UFOs and ETs and like all these races of ETs and things. And in the final analysis, really what it comes down to, the message is to ignite our divine flame. And the one kind of singular aim is our journey back to the creator, mother, father, creator. And Gaia is all part of that. And the universe is all part of that. And that's what all of the ETs are all about. And it's like, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more unbelievably expanding. And, you know, and phenomenal. And I'm over the last few years seeing so much rising, so much awareness. And that's really what Beyond Being Human is all about as well.
Right.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing about your website. I think just looking at the chat, it resonates with everybody in this group. And it looks like some people had already taken a look at your website. So I think we're all excited to see what comes next with that. And yeah, we're just happy for you and happy to have you with us. I know you're joining from Australia, which is a big time difference for you. So thank you for taking the time out to be with us today. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And you're doing a great job there, Tara.
Thank you.
Good job, Tara. She's desperately nervous.
Yeah, and
Brian always says that. He loves to say that.
Yeah, I got to say, like, Brian is doing amazing work and it's so constant and getting all the most amazing people as well, including you, Barbara. And it's always a joy to listen to you.
Actually, Tara knows her personally, did therapy with her. So Tara scored Barbara for us. Yay, Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
Well, it's a pleasure. So we're so happy to have you, Barbara. Before we go, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask you if we could have Norberto ask his question, and then I promise you we'll let you go, because I just, in fairness, want to make sure he's had his hand up for a while now, if that's okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Norberto.
Actually, I could introduce Norberto. He had a job interview with the ETs around 1971, 72 on the East Coast of the US. He's been a guest of us previously. He used to live here in Vancouver. I think you're in Malaysia now, Norberto. Norberto doesn't have a camera. He's good looking, but doesn't have a camera. Okay, Norberto, that's your incredible introduction.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, very good. Okay. Barbara, I wanted to ask you specifically about this job interview. When I belonged to the Opus group in the Bay Area with Les Velez and June Steiner before, and because of previous experience that I'd had. And when I was there, somebody said something within the group. In a circle, we were sitting in a circle. Somebody said something, and for some reason, it triggered a flood of memory all of a sudden. It just came back, and it happened to be 20 years plus after the fact that it happened. So it was involving a job interview. Actually, it was a two-part job interview. I think I was living in Toronto at that time, and I had gone for a job interview, a small one, at one of these tech parks kind of places, you know, in the script, single story, you know, the kind that has like a small desk at the front for the receptionist. And then there's a door leading to the back where they have this big area where people do things, they manufacture or whatever. And when I got there, there was no receptionist. So I cautiously went to the back, just saying hello, hello, through the open door to the back. And when I looked in that particular place, there were a lot of cubicles. There were no people. There's a lot of equipment, not equipment, chairs with still the plastic wrappings on them and everything. So and no telephones. So it was like a very new setup. The only people I saw there were two very, I would say like models. Like the way I describe them is like physical models, like modeling kind of people. One was a woman, which is blonde, and the other was a guy. He has dark hair, and they're standing literally shoulder to shoulder. They're both wearing dark navy blue outfits, and they have these big smiles on their faces, like saying, "Boy, are we happy to see you," kind of a thing. And well, I'm talking, I don't remember the entire conversation, but at one point they did mention something about like my being in Mensa, and I thought, well, after I remembered this, like 20 plus years later, I was not in Mensa at that time. It happened like many years later, a couple of decades later. And then that's all I remember of that one. But then the other thing that came flooding back to me was that I went for this job interview, and it was in New Jersey. And at that time, I'm Canadian. I was living probably in Toronto. I didn't have any visa or anything like that to go. And it was really weird because the way it happened was, the only thing I remember about this job interview, the second part, which is the main one, is that first thing I remember is I'm standing at curbside, okay, waiting for a car, somebody to pick me up. And it's at Philadelphia International Airport, okay? And so a big black stretch limo pulls up in front of me. A guy gets out with a little chauffeur uniform, opens the door, and I'm thinking to myself, probably a bunch of other people are going for the job interview. There'll be other people inside. Turns out I'm the only one in there. So we drive probably for, I don't know, it's been at least an hour. I don't know how long it took. It was a long time drive. And we finally get into New Jersey and go down a road, which is, it's sort of like the places in the boonies. All right, it's like it's at a building, a single-story building, surrounded by countryside and trees and that sort of thing. And I go into the lobby, and there's nobody there. After a few minutes, somebody comes out, the guy with the white shirt and tie. He brings me to the back, and while I'm walking through the back, I notice that there's nobody around, like no people. When I finally get to the room where the interviews take place, there's nobody else in there. I'm told to sit in a particular chair, and finally somebody comes in, and he starts asking me all sorts of engineering questions because I was going for a tech kind of a job at the time. And I remember the interview very clearly because he had asked me, and this is like in the early mid 70s. He had asked me how would I use a microcontroller, microprocessor at that time, and those microprocessors that at that time were very slow. They couldn't do much, very simple things only. How to calculate trigonometry angles, like sine, cosine, tangent, and all that kind of thing. And I went back into my trying to basically like scrape the bottom of the barrel for my memory, like going from like having a course in university on algorithms, like things for how do you calculate like a sine or whatever. And it was a very long formula. So that's the only thing you could think of. I told him that. And And I remember this answer very clearly. He told me, no, what you would do is you just pre-calculate all these angles and put them in a memory in the chip, and then you just look them up. And at that time, I'm like 20 something, and I'm thinking like, that's brilliant. That's a really brilliant idea. So anyways, I knew I had blown the interview. So after maybe 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, two other guys come, and the interviewer and these other two guys, they take me out of the building. As I'm walking through his office, next office, I saw posters of, at that time it was the F-14 Tomcat, I think the fighter jet, and I didn't realize it was a military contractor that I'd gone for the interview for. And so the three of them take me through the building, and we walk into this big space. It's a really huge space with low ceiling, with the lights and everything else, carpeting. And there is nothing else in there except there's a tiny room. It looks like, from afar, it looks like a conference room in the middle of the room. And they take me past it. They walk me past it.
Norberto, could I just interrupt? I do want you back as a guest, but maybe I'm just wondering if Barbara's fading. How do you feel, Barbara? Do you have to go? Can you finish the story, or just because we're 45 minutes overtime?
Getting hungry.
Yeah, actually, okay. That's fine then. I know that my voice has a quality of putting people to sleep. So
no, it's just we're 45 minutes over time, but we can do another video.
No, that's fine.
We can have her back
that'd
too.
Be fine too. Yeah, that'd be fine too. We can do that some other time. Yeah. But basically, the main question that I had was, have you had any people describe job interviews where strange things happened, or there was nobody there, or just really strange things happening?
No, I don't think I have. But I was wondering about those first two people you described in the first interview.
Yeah.
Wonder if those were really totally human.
Yeah, they looked odd. They looked perfect, absolutely perfect, as whatever, as human beings, they looked absolutely perfect.
Right.
I remember that.
I mean, what I was wondering is if they might be part of the group that we tend to call Nordic, because they look Scandinavian. They look like Scandinavian humans.
Yeah.
With very, very
good.
I
think I've heard of them.
Tall, slim, very often long hair. Or the woman.
Yeah, these didn't have. The woman had long hair, but like shoulder length hair at least, but the guy, I think he wasn't really. I think he was just a normal haircut, but it just looked so perfect though. The reason I bring this up too is because after I remembered this, I saw a book by Bud Hopkins, and it was all about these weird job interviews that what turned out to be more like abduction scenarios. It's like a screen memory kind of a thing, and it was an abduction. Yeah.
Well, I was wondering if you were going to say that in the second interview with a very large space, was there an unusual craft in it?
Nope. It was definitely like a building, but that space. Okay, when we walked by this little room, and it was really odd because I'm looking at the room as I'm passing it, and on one wall where we're passing, there's a big steel door. It's like a battleship door, like steel, like rounded corners, and a kind of like a the thing to open it it's got a handle which is like a round circular handle, and the above the door to the left of the door is a light, and it's on. It's a red light, big bright one, and standing under the light is an armed Marine guard, but he's wearing he's not wearing fatigues. He's wearing dress uniform, like with the white hat and the blue pants and the khaki shirt or whatever, and a revolver with a white rope going up to his shoulder and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, I remember thinking, well, I actually remember saying that as we walked by. I said, "Oh, cool," because like I'm 20, early 20s, and I'm thinking this is really cool, right? I just said something like that. The next thing I remember is I'm getting into the limo again, and it's nighttime, and we drive back through New Jersey, and by this time they asked me to sit in front with the driver. So I'm going there, we're driving, and I think the driver ended up speeding or something because he was pulled over by the New Jersey State Police. And the driver pulled off, the limo pulled off into this big expanse area with a gravelly kind of thing. It might have been a parking lot with no cars in it at that time. And the trooper gets out, comes out with his ticket book. It comes to the driver's side and says something about you were speeding. And at that very moment, another unmarked car, like when in those days in the 70s, it was a big, what I like to call aircraft carrier kind of cars, like huge. They like this car comes speeding into the gravel lot and slides to a stop. Okay, like kicking up all kinds of stones and dust and everything else. The door opens and this guy in a military uniform. It looked like kind of like, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly or not, but it was very impressive because I thought he looked like that Patton movies with the baggy pants and the high riding boots and things like that. And I remember him because when he came over to the policeman, and he said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And so they go off like toward his car and talk for a couple of minutes. Then the policeman comes back and he says, "You can go." And that's the last I remember it. I remember this military guy's gun on his holster was silver plated with ivory or something handle kind of thing. So it was like very, very decorative. It was, but it was very, the whole thing. And then I promptly forgot about it for 20 plus years until that meeting again. So I don't know, I kind of think that it might have been military related, but I just don't know. I really don't know.
Well, it sounds like there could have been a lot of screen image going on in that whole experience. And that the two tall people, the woman with the long hair and all that looked so perfect. This is just a possibility. I'm not saying this is what this was, but it's a possibility that they were visitors from some other planet and that there was some project going on there that they wanted you to be part of, but it was kind of a mysterious project, and a lot of screen image involved in it, like that door that you described, maybe even the uniforms. Who knows? But apparently it was a very odd experience to you.
Well, and what I forgot to add was, I thought after these memories came back to me, that I had imagined it, or maybe I dreamt about it or something. So right after the experiencer group meeting, I went home, went on the internet and looked up, actually, like I called my mother first. And I asked her, "Do you remember did I go for a job interview in the States, like at all, kind of thing?" And immediately my mother replied, "Oh yes, I remember that was called, a company called Base 10. And then it came back to me. The company name was Base 10. And I tried searching for it on the internet. And all that came up with was number systems, number bases, like hexadecimal, decimal, binary, octal, stuff like that. And what happened was that I found only one item, which was the like a retirement announcement for some guy at a company called Base 10. So and in the description it said Base 10 is a military or was a military contractor at that time. So I'm just wondering if this was a military abduction or if it was because I'd have experiences since I was young anyways. So I really don't know how to put this in context. I really have no idea.
You mean you've had experiences with extraterrestrials since you were young?
Yeah, and yeah, and after, yeah, and then basically the I guess primary experience that well, it's the one that I remember the most was in I want to say 1993, 94. And that one terrified me. And so I ended up finding the Opus group. And I started talking to Bud Hopkins first. I wrote him a letter. He wrote back, said, find somebody, like a regression hypnotist, therapist. And he gave me some names, and I went from there.
Right. Well, it's hard to really tell what your experience was, what it really was. But I do know that there are some groups of extraterrestrials who are working with some of our humans on certain bases, certain places. They're usually not well known by the public. They're usually, there's no public access. They're very guarded. And you were interviewing for a job there. It could be that you ran into one of those situations where there was a collusion between certain beings from another planet that looked very human, and our people. But you didn't get the job apparently, so you didn't really find out for sure. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't remember anything after the unmarked car, the military guy left. That was it. I had no memory. I don't remember. I don't remember the flight to Philadelphia Airport. I just remember standing on the curbside. I don't remember coming back to the airport and going back. I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, so there may have been some missing time, and there may have been a component of this where there really was a removal of you, an abduction, possibly, and maybe that whole thing, that whole place that you went to, was a screen image for really having a UFO encounter. That's a possibility.
Mm. Yeah.
I think if you had a regression about that whole incident, there might be more that would come to be clear for you about that whole thing.
Norberto, I was going to suggest the same thing. I was just going to say, maybe you should book an appointment with Barbara too. Barbara, you're going to get a lot of clients out of this.
Good idea. Good idea.
Yeah, it's hard to know with what we physically remember, and what we don't remember. But the fact that you don't remember something, that's sort of a clue that there's more to this than meets the eye.
I know
Absolutely.
there's more to it than meets the eye. I've tried regression before, but it just doesn't and nothing comes back to me.
Well, I'm going to jump in real quick because I know, Barbara, we've kept you here for quite a bit, a lot longer than we were planning. So we just want to wrap up right now and just tell you how much we appreciate you. And thank you so much for the time that you've given us today. I think obviously by the questions you've gotten, this group is very interested in this topic, and we never even covered crop circles. So you're just going to have to come back again.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I should mention we have a fellow here, Rolf, who's big interest in crop circles. In 1942 in Germany during the war, he had 3 gray aliens in his bedroom, and he's 88. We're taking out for lunch this week on February 6th. And you haven't even met him, maybe another time, but it's right here, Rolf Epper, if you want to say goodbye, Rolf. Or maybe he's asleep. But
Rolf,
he's 88,
I'm sorry.
1942, great experience. That's rare. Like it could be, here he is. Want to say hi, Rolf? Want to say goodbye?
Say hi, goodbye. And in the beginning, you had a remark by talking about the first Julia crop circle.
Yeah, Rolf asked for a crop circle to be made mentally, and it was done within hours.
Oh,
Yeah, I told my sister that would be a good spot for a crop circle. And then about 4 hours later, it appeared.
oh, very good.
Yeah.
What's that? Where was the crop
Well,
circle?
that's a Julia set.
Oh, the Julia set. Oh, yeah.
I was visiting Stonehenge and going on to Bath and back to London where my sister lives. And as we walked back to the bus, I looked across the highway to that empty field. And I
Yeah.
told my sister that would be a perfect spot for a crop circle.
Uh-huh.
And then the next day when I flew back, I saw in the newspaper in the airplane on the front
Yeah.
page was a crop circle.
That was wonderful. I spent a lot of time in that crop circle.
Really?
Yes, yeah, I was there. I
Yeah.
was there when it happened. I
Yeah.
was right
He-
there at field, but I was in Wiltshire County
Yeah.
when that
Yeah.
happened and went rushing right over as soon as I heard, like many
Yeah.
other people did. Yeah.
It took 9 years until I got into a crop circle. 2005, July 9th at Silver Hill. There was a crop
Okay.
circle.
Oh, I'm glad you
Okay.
did. I spent 27 years visiting crop circles
Really?
in England. Mhm.
So who is making them?
Well, I think there are some human-made ones,
Yeah, I forget about
but
them.
they're not
No.
not wonderful. And I think most of them are made by, all I can say is some intelligence from out there,
Right.
from off planet, from space.
yeah,
Don't know specifically.
Yeah.
Right, but I do think that we're being wonderfully communicated with by that intelligence, whatever it is.
Right. Right.
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think it's very, very benevolent and very beautiful and very wonderful.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've taken some. I wasn't really convinced that the one I was in was not man-made. Like some people had their doubts, right? But I had a stereoscopic camera. That's my specialty.
Oh,
And when I looked at the three-dimensional images, it was clear as anything that this could not be man-made. It's just impossible.
could not be man-made.
No, no.
Uh-huh. Do you remember which one that was?
Well,
Where-
I don't know what it's called. July 9. It was,
Is it England?
yeah, at Silver Hill, right next to the hill there.
Oh, yeah. And which year?
2005. It almost looks a little bit like a bug.
Oh, there was a huge one there in 1994. It was flying across the hill there, but that was a different year. there was one 2005, it might have been one that looked kind of like an ancient Egyptian symbol,
Yeah.
similar to that pattern itself.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, I was in.
I
was in that
lo-
one.
yeah, I located, but I don't have the picture now. I mean, I could look it up. But I met a guy that just came out of the circle, a Swiss guy. I'm Swiss also accidentally, and he went up on the hill, Silbury Hill,
Silbury Hill. Yeah,
that, which you're not supposed to be doing.
I know. I did it many times.
Yeah, and he's taken a picture of that crop circle from top of the hill,
Oh, yeah, good.
because when you're in it, you cannot see the whole formation.
That's right. Yes.
So then he showed it to me on his digital camera, and he was gonna send me the email, but he never did. And with the date and the memory I had, what he showed me, I was sure that that's the crop circle. You can probably find it by the date online.
It's probably on the Crop Circle Connector website.
Yeah, it's quite interesting formation. Yeah.
But Rolf, we can have her back again. This isn't the last time, and we can have Barbara back, right, Barbara? You'll join us again someday.
Yeah, yes.
Do you want to wrap up, Barbara? I don't want to be responsible for exhausting you.
I would like to. I would like to eat, and I
Okay.
have work to do tonight too.
Well, thank you kindly. It's a blessing to have you, Barbara, and Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been a great co-host, Tara.
Well, I want to thank Barbara, just, for all the work that you do in this field, and I think we all appreciate it. So thank you so much for being such a pillar in this community, and we look forward to meeting with you again in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Tara. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes. And I wish you all wonderfully well.